Chris Hadley. I'm a writer for the popular web series blog SnobbyRobot.com. My guest is the series co-producer Rochelle
Dancel, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, she is the co-producer with Alison Venor of Producing Juliet, which is a great series, and I definitely recommend you all check it out. So anyway, Rochelle, welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and it's great to have you here.
Thank you. It feels really weird to be, because I did the cast conversation series, which is the interview series with the cast. And part of the reason for that was so that I would get to know them a little bit better. So it feels a little bit different now that the tables have been turned, I guess.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about yourself in terms of where you're from, how long you've been in the business of production, filmmaking, what you do as a producer on Producing Juliet, your responsibilities with producing the show, your overall background, and your experience with web series and with filmmaking in general, overall.
Wow. That's a big question. Okay, well, I live in London, as in London, England, as opposed to London, Alabama, or wherever. And it has been so sort of for this show and the first web series that I did, which is called BJ Fletcher Private Eye. And that show was made in Toronto, Canada, with Regan Latimer, who's a long-term production partner of mine. But on Producing Juliet, which films in New York, I guess kind of, you know, the time difference and the sort of time zone thing is a big challenge. But I think you know, Alison battles it as well because she's obviously on the West Coast. This is my second independent web series, and I've done a number of them. It's a sort of gray area between sort of video content for advertising purposes that I do sort of day to day for a number of brands. But I don't know, I mean, I guess I probably started full on in about 2008, not just with Fletcher, but I made a documentary series which is now used in the European Union because it was around sort of the specialist domestic violence court system. This is a massive kind of like tangent. So I started in documentaries as a way of, you know, sort of telling those stories a bit more kind of like factual way. And then just kind of moved into sort of, you know, comedy, drama, other stuff that you see doing now. So, you know, one of the benefits of this is that I don't necessarily have to just play in one particular genre because for me it's just sort of all about the story regardless of the framework that's around it. So yeah, I mean, I've been doing it for a while. Started in, as many of the team on Producing Juliet, in the theatre. Trained as an actor. Went to university for it. You know, so, you know, a good sort of like 12, 15 years in some facet of the business or other. And I think all of that in some kind of convoluted way has sort of prepared me and kind of landed me where I am today.
Now, how did you become involved with Tina Cecil Ward and with Producing Juliet?
Well, I mean, I've been emailing with Tina and with Susan Miller, who she did Anyone But Me,
yes,
with Rachel, since sort of 2008 when they first launched. But I met Tina and Rachel and actually Susan and Nicole Payson as well for the first time in, I think it was like November. Yeah, it was about November 2012, and they were in London doing an event for Anyone But Me. It was, I think, their DVD launch for their final season. And I was speaking to Tina about a play that I was producing in the West End at the time. I was on the production team for. And, you know, they were in London and we were talking about theatre and so forth. And when Tina got back to New York, she emailed me about a show that was set in the theatre. And there was an awful lot of kind of back and forth and about the form of the show, You know, in past interviews I've mentioned that originally, you know, it was when it was kind of pitched to me, it was a play, and in our sort of, you know, the kind of conversations and things that we had around it, I then kind of found myself attached or getting attached.
Yes.
To the show, and that's sort of how we grew. And actually, then when that happened, the kind of from that stage to when we filmed the pilot episode and the second episode was actually quite quick, because the Raindance London Web Fest announced its inaugural season, and there was this kind of mad dash to kind of get stuff ready for that. We just thought, you know what, it's a great deadline to have and to work towards. So the team was put together kind of quite quickly after that, and we've been blessed actually with a team, some of whom have worked together before, some haven't, some are brand new, but we all kind of, you know, there's a sort of 2 degrees of separation on the team, and, you know, everyone, you know, gets along, and there's a lot of respect for our working processes. So we've been kind of quite lucky in that sense, but I think like anything, you know, I sort of fell into it, and it just sort of worked out basically. So that's been nice.
Now, what is it like working with Tina and with her cast, including Rachel, because she's been practically in everything that Tina has done in terms of web series, not only this show, Producing Juliet, but also, of course, Anyone But Me, and her last series, which was Good People in Love.
Yeah, I mean they're both amazing. I think. With Tina, it's always refreshing, regardless, to work with someone who has a very, very clear point of view, and a very kind of clear perspective, and a very clear aesthetic as well. Now, I do a lot of the design on the show, so especially kind of around our marketing materials. So everything that you see, you know, from our website to all the photos that are put out, the pictures, the posters, everything. I work on all of those, and I've designed all of those. And because the aesthetic of the show is really, really clear, it makes my job an absolute pleasure, because, you know, the kind of the guidelines and the constraints are there. But they kind of provide you with this really nice framework to do some very, very beautiful work. And to have that, you know, it's always really nice, you know, to have someone who's very strong, because, you know, you get a really nice kind of creative steer, and that kind of permeates into all other avenues of, you know, the Producing Juliet projects. It's not just the show, you know, in the materials, but, you know, tone of voice, and, you know, it's really nice to have a steer that, you know, a perspective that's really, really clear. Rachel's awesome. I mean, you know, when they were over, I met her and Alicia Spillman and Jenny Grace when they were over for Raindance in September, and we just had the best time with them. You know, they are really lovely people. You know, not just Rachel, but all of them, and we had the best time. So, some fun times I had with that cast, definitely.
Well, when it premiered at Raindance, what was the reaction like? I mean, what did people think of it when they first saw it?
It's I mean, it was really well received, and at Raindance they took care of us very well. And, you know, I think being from London and having this festival kind of be in my hometown, so to speak, was just, you know, especially special for me. And they definitely took care of us really well. It was really nice sort of meeting a lot of our peers as well, like who'd come over from the US and from Canada, and people I don't usually get to meet because, you know, the travel is just so far away, you know, but you've been tweeting with these people, you interview with them, you know, and so forth for many, many years now. So it was really nice meeting all of them. And yeah, I mean, it's a very different experience watching a show on a, you know, a tiny screen in a sort of personal setting versus, you know, a sort of, you know, 6-story high cinema screen as it was in the movie theater. But yeah, I mean, it was very well received, and, you know, people said amazing things about it, and we were just, you know, really, really grateful for the reception that we had. And the fact that has, you know, since filtered through If you look at, our comments on YouTube, on Twitter, and the comments that our fans have been leaving on the website. So, yeah, it's been amazing. We've been blessed.
What has the reaction been among your peers in the industry? And I'm sure that Tina can elaborate on this more as well as Allison, but what have some of your colleagues in the industry thought of the show and of its overall success?
We get a lot of, I can't believe you did that on the budget on which you did it. And that's always kind of really good. I mean, the thing with having, one of the things everyone said, just generally at Rain Dance, was like a lot of times you can watch shows in isolation. I might like this show, I might like this show in another genre, but when you put them all up against each other and you watch them back to back to back on a mammoth screen, you suddenly start to, it makes it, one, really easy to compare, or easier to compare, and the things that stand out really stand out, and the things that you need to improve on, they stand out as well. But it's really, so I think to kind of be screening in that environment, the standard is so high. And I was just kind of really proud of the show because, it's held its own. The fans obviously have been, I get to, because I look after the social media stuff, I get to speak to the fans usually kind of either firsthand or I'm usually one of the first people to speak to them before everyone. And I love how they've just kind of gotten it. It's, like I said, it's not a show that hands you everything on a plate immediately. It's not, you don't get instant kind of gratification. The kind of, you have to follow it, and therein is sort of its own reward. And we have this series of images, that we're kind of posting at the moment. Whenever we have someone that leaves a comment, that we love or that touches us or we think is important, we'll kind of post it, and so it's our, kind of fan thank you campaign. And there was this one recently that I absolutely loved, where it was like, it's not like a lesbian web series, not a gay web series, it's not a bisexual web series, it's just a series about love, basically. Love is love. And we've had lots of kind of similar comments like that, and I love it, because, like, of course, on some level, you want everyone to kind of arrive at that. And that's what you feel, and that's what you think when you do a show like this. But then, to then have it kind of mirrored back to you is always incredibly satisfying and kind of quite humbling, as well. Our peers they've been really supportive of it, where it's screened and when it showed, they've been, tweeting it and sharing it and telling people about it. We enjoy incredible support, especially from people like WebV Guide, Jeff, and Daniela, and Eli, and Kyle, and Susan, and everyone there. Has been incredibly supportive. So, I couldn't really, I couldn't really ask for kind of much more apart from just more of what we've been kind of blessed to enjoy, I guess. So, yeah.
Anyway, Rochelle, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and doing this first crew conversation with me, and I'm sure that our viewers with Producing Juliet, those who watch this show, will definitely benefit from learning about the production of the show itself and your insight.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you so much. And by the way, that's producingjuliet.com. This has been Crew Conversations. I'm Chris Hadley for SnobbyRobot.com and for Producing Juliet. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.